Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome, everybody, to the Lurnist show, broadcasting live to you today from the Phoenix Business RadioX studios here in Tempe, Arizona. I'm your host, Deborah Hildebrand.
And I'm your co-host and producer, Lauren Jenny. And we are here to celebrate Women in Agile.
So one of my passions is to help young girls who want to have a career in STEM. This show is a big part of how we get there, because as we highlight women who are doing amazing things at Agile, we create role models for young women to look up to and emulate. So, of course, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Learn Agile. We provide Agile certification courses, professional learning courses, and coaching. You can get certified with IC Agile or Scaled Agile. Find out more at learnagile.com. That's LURN agile.com. So today we're really excited to welcome Karina Jones, Director of Information Technology at Arizona State University, and Erin Randall, Principal Coach and founder of Admelioria and co-leader of the Agile Austin Coaching Group. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
So Erin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your certifications, and your work?
I'd be happy to. And I'm also going to laugh here a little bit at the beginning because I feel like I have more initials after my name than I probably will ever need. But they do come in handy on occasion. So you were bringing up IC Agile certifications and the like, but I really started as a Scrum Master along that track and fell in love with the work, so much so that I did go down the Agile coaching route. So I did both the IC Agile certifications for Agile coaching as well as Agile team facilitation. And then I did a year-long cohort because I wanted to become great at Agile coaching, not just, I can hold my own. I wanted to really do this work to the very best of my ability. And that meant a year of study and practice and the like. And from there, I did the enterprise cohorts for both coaching Agile transformations or transitions, as well as enterprise coaching. And then I did work for a coactive certification. And right now I've just finished up the ORSC, the Organizational Relationship and System Coaching. So I'm kind of annoying on the certification front, and I know it. But all those skills do really come in handy to the point that I don't even really consider certifications anymore because I want the learning behind them so that I can serve teams and individuals with those skills.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Me on the training front.
Really?
What about your business, Erin?
That we're going to laugh here because I kicked things off late last year, but I knew that I was going to be in Tanzania because my mom at age 72 was like, we really need to climb Kilimanjaro now. And I'm like, you're right. We do need to, because that's not something we can keep putting off. So we were in Tanzania the beginning of the year. So I really didn't kick off Admelioria coaching until February of 2020. So you can imagine the world's best possible time to launch a business. But it's also been wonderful because people, there's a little bit more time now. And people can step back and step into that and be like, okay, what do I need here? And a lot of coaching work is about holding space for those transformations to happen. So making that available to people, as well as, walking that path with them and holding that container so they can move through that kind of transformation is honestly some of the most rewarding work that I can imagine. But I do that work not just for individuals, but for organizations and teams as well. And helping teams step through that kind of work really makes a huge difference in the organizational life of a company.
Really, really intriguing. I'm just in awe. But also, Karina, I want to ask you, can you tell us about your career and all about you and how you work in ASU and all that with the university?
Yes. So I work at ASU Preparatory Academy. So we are in the area of K-12 for ASU. We actually prepare our little ones. We have from pre-K through high school, little ones that are getting ready to go to college. And that is a step towards their college degree. 100% of our students come to get a secondary degree, and most of them come to ASU, but it can be any post, secondary education, not necessarily just ASU. I have been here at ASU for 8 years now, I believe, and in different areas of ASU, not only ASU Prep Academy, and I love it. But what is interesting is that before ASU, I'm coming actually from 14 years in the corporate sector. I was in Procter & Gamble, Latin America, for 14 years in different countries, and managing projects. I have always been big on projects. That is my thing. So I used to manage projects of all kinds, mostly in manufacturing sector and sales. So totally different from education. And I have to say, I did not know Agile before, because our projects in manufacturing especially are fully waterfall, like the typical traditional project. So when I came to ASU, I did experience some cultural shock in a way, just trying to understand Agile and why is it that suddenly, we had to be changing scope of the project in the middle of the project, and changing resources in the middle of the project. And that is a very interesting way in which my mind went to learn how Agile really works differently for these type of projects that we have in education. And right now, I totally get it. I totally dig Agile, but I come from broad experience in any sort of projects as well.
Wow, our listeners are very lucky today to have such great guests.
I agree. And Karina, it's interesting because I don't think anybody like our age, from our generation is purely Agile, right? Like they are now. Like you could probably just know Agile and never have experienced waterfall, right? But I mean, I think most of us that are like our generation, yeah, we have experienced waterfall. And I remember the first time that I was introduced to Agile, and I thought the guy was crazy. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think it's great that, and we'll talk about it a little later, but I think it's great that ASU has an Agile culture, because that I work for a couple other universities and they do not, right? They're still waterfall. And I think it's a big problem because it is design work, right? You are building a product when you're building programs and courses, and Agile lends itself beautifully to that, right? And I see Erin shaking her head, right? And I just don't understand how, because I remember the first time we did a program at the University of Washington, and they had me fill out like, sheets and sheets full of design of these of this 3-course program, and I'm like, how are we going to know what that course is going to look like before we finish the first one, right? And they wanted us to fill out the whole thing, and so it's interesting. I love it that ASU does that. So I hope that a lot more universities start to follow that model.
Definitely. I also believe that I have to say, I continue to believe that waterfall is definitely not a bad methodology, right? It depends on the project that you are handling. And so you have to understand the different methodologies so that when you get to understand the project, your mind can immediately say, or at least that I have come to that point in which I can see a project and I say, actually, this is not going to work for Agile. This requires more about waterfall, or requires a combination, a Agile. So is it going to be Scrum or Kanban? So getting to understand the different methodologies is very important so that you see what makes a better fit for your project. Agile is not always the solution for everything.
And Karina is absolutely right with that. Agile is not the only solution for anything. What I do love is that we can be flexible about so many things, and these frameworks give us such a wide tool set. I have a friend who you were mentioning at the beginning, Deb, that you were looking the STEM aspect and helping students step forward into different careers. But I have friends that are teachers and helping them. What would a Kanban board look like just for your classroom? to be able to show the work, be transparent about what we're doing here. Those small steps there can really make it, number one, easier for people as they begin to enter higher education and have some of those at least exposure in mind to make that an easier transition. Plus, who doesn't love a good Kanban board, except maybe husband who's like, are we doing that work thing again? I'm like, yes, we are.
Yeah, I think Kanban boards are a great way to get it started, and the stand-up meetings. Those are the two things that people love. So, and work, right? And they show that it works.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, okay. And then I always kind of hook them in with a good retrospective, because I love to work with metaphors on retrospective and help people really get down there and like, oh, I didn't even realize I felt that way about that. And like, how do we bring that forward? So yes, I completely agree. Daily stand-up, keep it short, sweet, answer 3 questions, get back to stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So of course I can't have the show without talking about COVID. And I wish, that we didn't talk about COVID. I'm like, I wish it was over, right? And we didn't have to talk about COVID. Mm-hmm. But, it has disrupted so much of the way we do work. And so I've been asking my guests, how has it impacted or even benefited? I know, Erin, you talked a little bit about how it's been a benefit for you that people have slowed down a bit. But how has it impacted your work, if at all? So we can ask Erin and Karina, jump in.
All right. I'm like, which of us would like to tackle that monster first? Well, COVID affects everything at this point. Some adversely, some of it is just causing us to be more creative. I was supposed to be in Nigeria in June speaking at one of the regional Scrum gatherings. And I had planned, since I was going that far anyway, I was going to do a one-day coaching workshop for some of the participants. And obviously that whole thing got, canceled because, well, no one could fly. But it seemed a waste to not try to do something different for those people that wanted to attend. So I moved the whole thing up to Mural, and we loaded participants in. We just did it via Zoom. It was different, okay, because I'm able to teach differently when I'm in Mural versus in person, and it's adapting, for that moment. Not all changes are positive. One of my big things is to actually meet people in person whenever possible. And COVID has really put the kibosh on that. It's a little hard to have tea with someone when nothing, you can't, like stay 20 feet back. Yeah. So that part's been hard. But I think we're about to enter a new phase of creativity, of collaboration, rather than just sustaining through what we're experiencing now. I think we're starting to dig in and be like, okay, well, this is going to be it for a while. Okay. We've got to find a way forward. And what are we willing to bend? What are we willing to do in order to make that kind of collaboration happen?
Mm-hmm. Karina?
Yeah, for me, the typical, totally agree with Erin. Like, we have to be able to adapt because this is going to stay. It's not going to go away tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, right? And some of it is going to stay, and it's totally transforming the way in which we do business and work. So in my case, it's been, the typical working from home, caring for a child. I have a 5-year-old who at first, his daycare was closed for several months. And so I had to be dealing with meetings and just entertaining my child still. So I ended up being able to find a routine, I believe, that worked for us. We were able to set our Alexas to create some schedules. So Alexa would remind us, 8 a.m. is time for breakfast. 9 a.m. is time for centers. And I would send my boy to work on centers. And so just being able to manage both being a mom and work at the same time with multiple meetings, and in a time in which we were moving to online learning for all of our students, and was super, super busy at our school, really, supporting families on this transition as well. So it was difficult times, but like Erin says, we have all learned to really deal with this, and this is here to stay. So the good of it and the good practices that we have learned are going to be the ones that remain and make everybody stronger.
Yeah. I agree with Karina wholeheartedly. And by the way, I love the idea now of Alexis. She's got the calendar internalized. She's like, don't forget, it's time for, your meeting right now. So I'm just going to hear that voice in my head.
Yeah, it's amazing the way the tools have evolved, right? I mean, just a Zoom. I've been using Zoom for like 12 years because I've been teaching online forever. It's amazing how it's evolved in the last like 9 months. So,
and watching what, different companies were doing to try to support teachers and students as they all of a sudden everybody went home. How do you help, make that learning environment possible? What tools and support, what training, how can we be of service there to make this a reality? Because we can't just say, oh, well, nope, no more school. We're going to send that, no one's going to be there. That's not a reality. And to step forth into that, it takes a lot of bravery and courage, but just tenacity. We've got to find a way to make this work.
And we make it work at the end, I believe. Like in the case of ASU, we were lucky that we already had a branch of our schools that are fully online. Like we have an ASU Prep Digital and we have the ASU Online modalities that are already online. So we were already used to using Zoom or using those technologies, and we just had to take them to everybody. The technologies already existed, but I think we make it work at the end because there's no option, right? Either you make it or you die. So,
but also, I mean, COVID and a new way of working, it spawned some great things too. My friend Carrie Sudi and I used to do an Agile coaching circle, really trying to help people practice coaching and mentoring skills. We used to do that just locally here in Austin. And then all of a sudden we realized that people were starting to log in from Tasmania. We're like, what? How did you find this? And they're like, oh, we did a search on Meetup. And we realized what was happening. And so we went global with the whole thing. And now we've got 5 going around the world. And it would have never come about if COVID hadn't come into play. Because all of a sudden we realized we're like, oh, we've got to do something else. We have to be able to serve the people that are coming, not just, this tiny pocket here. Also, if you hear snoring in the background, it's the dogs.
Mine snore too. That's so funny.
I have a snoring one too. So.
I was like, it's not commentary in my interest. No, it's just yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic, I was going to save this a little later because one of the listeners had asked me to address this question. But since we're on the topic, let's just keep it relevant. Since COVID, there has been a whole notion of needing to be more productive from your boss, or, you maybe have that kind of notion of yourself, like I need to be more productive because I'm at home. I need to do things, constantly be doing things. So the whole talk about like overworking yourself and when to end the day, how do we manage our time and stress around work from home? That could be your relationship too, with your family, whatnot.
Well,
any of you guys can.
I'll wade in. My first question would be then, if I were the employee that had been given that feedback from a manager, I would ask, what does productive mean to you? What markers are you wanting to see? What's important for you to see that I'm getting done? Because I want to understand, make certain that we have the same wavelength around what productive is. Because I think we're going to have to see a shift. It's not possible with people, with families at home. There's going to have to be some flexibility and some forgiveness there. But if productive means, getting these things done, then absolutely go ahead. I need to have that, that structure throughout my day. Can you remind me kind of what the second part of the follow-on to that question was?
Just managing your time and stress around work and with your family and whatnot.
Yeah, I've seen people do some really great things where, they would take the kids for a walk before, the day begins, just to help transition, that mental transition from, home to school there and the like. I've seen people block different parts of their calendars to denote that, hey, I'm going to have to be handling, school with kids at this time. I'm going to be not as available here, but I've made up for it around here. I tend to lean into the pillar of transparency on this part, just because, if you're open and communicative with people and let them know what's going on, it's easier for them to be like, oh, well, that's what happened there then. Okay, I have a better understanding. I'm not hiding anything from you. This is what I've got. And by leaning into transparency and really making people a part, it opens the door for more collaboration and generosity of both heart and time.
I totally agree with that. I used to do examples of what Erin is saying, and say, for example, from 11 to 1 p.m., my calendar was blocked because that was the time in which I was, number one, doing some personal time with my child, doing some teaching, practicing some letters, some numbers from 11 to 12. And then at 12, I will be getting his lunch ready and getting him to sit down at the table, have his lunch. And after lunch, I used to have in my schedule a 1 p.m. 1 p.m. time for my child to go to his room. And Alexa would remind us 1 p.m. downtime. And downtime, and it would start playing some relaxing music in his room. And then that was the time for him to relax. And that's when I would be able to go to work. So my recommendation, if you're asking, is for me, what really worked, what was to set a routine. And in my case, I used Alexa, but it can be a calendar. It can be something on a board, anything. Yeah. As long as I have a routine, I was able to make it work. And totally like my managers, my teams were really understanding that from 11 to 2, I was not available because I was taking care of my child.
And the other thing that I've seen work on that front is Kanban boards for families at home, so that people kind of have that, sprint planning, at the beginning of the week and say, okay, what does everybody have going? Because there are a lot of different balls, going around the air and the like, so that everybody's really on the same page. What would it be like as a family to have daily stand-up every morning, just so you've got that? And yeah, your kids need to be a little bit older and the like for that. But, what's wrong with bringing some of those ceremonies back in? Because if you're looking at that communication that Karina was talking about there, and by the way, I think I need to go look at Alexa after this. I'm like, Alexa, how can you help me? But I think use some of those things that, if you are on an Agile team of any sort at work, what about bringing some of that home? And I'm not trying to blur those lines, but I'm trying to help, how can these practices support you? Mm-hmm. What are you doing elsewhere that can blend over here and be like, oh, this is a way to do this as well? Okay.
Relevancy.
Right? And consistency. Sometimes I have found myself trying different approaches, and I did find myself at some point doing some Kanban boards with my child, but it didn't last more than a couple of weeks. So I was not a good following up on that. So
I do have. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I do have friends that homeschool, and I explain Kanban boards to them and how it could help like a child homeschool. And they're like, oh, okay. And they're like, okay. And just from a day-to-day practice, and for especially older children, they could, step in and take, more control of their own board and their own learning. But for a younger child, helping them to understand how things move through a system, and, then they could see the progress that they make on that too. I feel like I'm sponsored by Kanban boards today.
No, but that's a great idea. I love it. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I could see my kids totally using that.
No, my friend Karen, that's her. She is homeschooled for a long time. And, we went through it and I explained what this was, but, it goes back to that transparency aspect. Mm-hmm. We broke down a lesson plan and we just did here's what a day, really, Eleanor, the commentary, she's over there. Oh. We took a lesson plan for a day. All right, how do you break this down and how do you explain it? But it made it also easier for people who are homeschooling to document, what that they'd done there. And it kind of made it easy transition, record keeping too.
That's really cool. It's a great idea.
So let's transition now. Karina, you mentioned your work at Arizona State University with Agile, right? So why is it relevant to Arizona State ASU?
Yeah, so if you're familiar, at ASU, we're operating right now under the leadership of President Michael Crow. And in this, under his leadership, we are positioned as a comprehensive knowledge enterprise. What this means is that we combine teaching, learning, and discovery, and use a lot of research practices to promote innovation. And we have very ambitious goals to achieve all of the different areas of the enterprise model at ASU. But the thing is that in order to achieve all of those goals, ASU believes in change and believes that change has to be approached in a way that is rapid, purposeful, and perpetual. And so this is at the top leadership of ASU, starting with President Michael Crow, saying change needs to be rapid, purposeful, and perpetual. And guess what? Without knowing it, he's actually talking about Agile, because Agile is all about that. Agile is change, and Agile embraces the concept of change being rapid, purposeful, and perpetual. And so, as in any organization, I believe, I always say, Agile is really not a methodology. Agile is a mindset. Agile has several methodologies. One of them is Scrum, Kanban, but Agile per se is not a methodology. It's a mindset. It's a way of operating. And it starts with an organization being aware that change is something good, that we need to continue to change every single day, listen to the stakeholders, incorporate feedback, and adapt quickly. All of those are Agile principles, so they are a great fit to what President Crow is actually calling us to do.
Tracy Smith is a poet, and she said, change is a generative act. And I think you just explained it so well right there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Karina.
Yeah. Love it. And like I said, I'm coming from an organization in which we were only waterfall. So for me, it took really a difficult time to embrace this concept that change is good, that please do change my scope in the middle of the project, because that is a good thing. That's going to mean that my stakeholders are going to be happy at the end, right? And that is how we live it right now. So it is a perfect fit for ASU. It was not easy for me personally to actually move to this approach. But now I don't see any other way.
But I like that you still honor, some of the foundation which you learned, because there are times when, a flat, straight project, running according to PMP principles, yeah, that's the way to go.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I love that you're just demonstrating the fact that it's like, okay, I need to be over here. Okay, I need to be over here. But you're really listening to the system, the voice of the system, and the people to whom you're delivering value.
So, Erin, I know you mentioned this a little bit before, but what is important to you about your work? What frustrates you, or what brings you, passion or something?
Wow, that is a big question. What is important to me about my work? This work allows me to fully live my own values and to truly be of service to whether it be organizations or teams within those organizations, but individuals. This work is important to me because I see it adding to good in the world, whether it be teaching people how to use questions more effectively, to have better conversations, to learn how to listen, to analyze what's going on behind the scenes. I used to work in engineering organizations. I did a lot of work as a technical writer, writing gruesomely large documentation manuals that I was fairly certain I was the only person who ever read. But this work allows me to not only use all of my thinking, but also my heart. And to be able to do that, I think, is rather extraordinary. And so that's why this work is so meaningful to me. What is frustrating to me about it, I see a lot of people call themselves coaches. And I guess by frustrating, I mean, it also scares me to some degree as well, is because, coaching butts right up against, in many practices, therapy or counseling and the like. As a coach, I also need to know when I'm out of my depth, out of my league, when I, am not on ethically solid ground trying to help a person, because they would really be better helped by someone else. And it frustrates me when people don't take that into consideration and just think coaching is, asking questions. It's not. It's not at all. I take that aspect. My job is to be of service, That is really important in coaching. And I feel like I just doused the entire conversation. People are like, we were doing so well. It was uplifting, energetic. And now it's like somber.
No, I think that's important.
No, I mean, so I was going to ask this question anyway. So can you, like, for those, I'm assuming most people know what an Agile coach is, but let's kind of like go down to the elementary level and explain like what you do. What is an Agile coach?
So an Agile coach is someone who has, if we think of a big wheel on the floor, okay, and about, a good quarter to a good third of that wheel is going to be my Agile knowledge. And by that, I'm also going to throw in there Scrum, Lean, Kanban, XP, everything there, that I have both theory as well as practical knowledge of those frameworks. Okay. But if I expand from there, further out into the wheel, there's coaching, mentoring, teaching, and facilitating. And I'll be honest, I spend most of my day as an Agile coach working between those 4 different areas, whether it be doing an on-the-spot coaching session with someone who's really having trouble, finding their way forward with their particular problem. It might be teaching, what do user stories look like here? How do we, capture better metrics? What do we need to do here to use powerful questions to forward a conversation rather than, having someone feel like they're undergoing the Spanish Inquisition. Okay. So I spend most of my day in those 4 areas: coaching, mentoring, teaching, and facilitation. The other 3 parts on that wheel are transformation, business, and technical, meaning that as a coach, I need to have a grasp of what the business needs at those levels, whether it's how do we execute a full-scale organizational transformation, whether it's really understanding the deep technical side of the problem that is being considered. Excuse me, as I have a big frog in my throat. But also the business. What is the business ask here? What are the things at play if we don't, execute fully on this problem? So an Agile coach is someone who really steps into that wheel and can take it all into consideration. Okay. As an Agile coach, I mean, honestly, I have a pretty interesting day most days because I'm not always certain what's going to come my way. But I need to have the experience and the wherewithal to know how to not only handle those problems, but to move through them. Okay. And knowing, hey, would it be a really good idea here? How would we apply Cynefin, with this model? Or do we need to implement a coaching and mentoring practice throughout the organization to really help lift that up? Do we need to take, why are we falling down over here on a roadmap perspective? Do we need to think about scaling? So as an Agile coach, it's not an easy job, but it is very interesting every single day. So did that help explain what an Agile coach is?
Yeah, that's a great explanation. And I love the 4 areas. I've experienced it as well. And I've probably spent about, most of my time in the teaching area, but a lot of facilitation and coaching as well. So yeah.
I have to say, I really commend you, Erin, for what you said before. Now it makes sense when you said that you are your interest is in really you are able to say this is the moment in which you are no longer helping you, and there is something else that you need to take. And I haven't really heard that many on teachers or coaches, and so I commend you for that, because that is only saying that you are actually practicing listening to your stakeholders as you go, and being able to understand if you are able to actually help or not, and maybe recommend some other options that may not be within your control, but actually it's part of your job to take them in a different direction if it is really needed. So you're capturing their feedback, you're capturing what works best for them, and being able to adapt as it goes.
Yeah. Right? So, the ethics side of this, the ethical side of my training. So full transparency, I used to be an adjunct faculty at a university up in Chicago. And, I would always get all of these computer science students that had waited until the last quarter to take this course that they had to have as part of their degree. And I would include ethics as part of this conversation. And it always surprised me that wound up being my favorite section every time I taught, just because of the conversations that spawned from it. And the students, the feedback from them was, well, they're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that in this course, but that turned out to be invaluable. And I'll be honest, as a coach, that ethics foundation and training is really important to me. And I'm glad that the coaching programs are understanding this and taking this into account, because without it, I think of it as being unmoored. You have this ship, being tossed around at sea. Without that foundation, you're just, kind of a Jello salad without control. But ethics make it possible for me to stand with deep, strong roots and know who I am, what's important to me, and how I want to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm never unhappy for that foundation. But thank you, Karina. That was really kind of you to say. I appreciate that.
So, Karina, so this is, Agile came out of technology, software development. I get this question all the time when I teach my intro to Agile class. And even in my waterfall class. So I do teach both. I teach Agile and waterfall project management, but I get this all the time. How can I use Agile outside of technology? So can you give us some examples of how it's used at ASU in non-technology projects?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because yes, we take pride at ASU for the ability to use Agile beyond just the technical team. But a couple of examples are one of the units at ASU is named Ed Plus. It's the area for ASU Online plus others. And they apply Agile for marketing projects, for example, being able to keep a Kanban board with all of the visuals, events, campaigns, and all of the digital assets that are being planned for a marketing team. And all of that it's in Agile using Jira boards. So Jira is one of the tools that is typically used for by IT teams, but why not use it in other areas, right? I myself, at some point, a couple of years ago, or maybe more, I did manage a large project in which we did Scrum for curriculum development. So in my team, I did not have IT developers. In my team, I had subject matter experts and instructional designers and graphic designers and teachers who were putting together new content for courses. And we developed lessons and units and whole courses with different components of the course, just using Scrum and with following daily Scrum meetings and metrics and all of the Scrum methodology itself for curriculum development. And it works perfectly well. So yes, Agile beyond IT is it's possible. I see you, Erin, doing some.
Yes, you've made my heart glow just a little bit. I mean, honestly, Agile works. I really haven't bumped to where, a place where it wouldn't work. I used to work for a large publishing company, and I worked upstairs in the IT part, but I made friends with some of the scientists as well. And what you were describing, we started applying Agile to like textbook development, where we do, deep slices instead of these horizontal runs. I'm like, oh, and we could deliver much more quickly. We could deliver much more interactively. Full transparency, I've implemented different parts of Agile at veterinary clinics, electrical engineering firms, design sprints, HR, marketing, my family reunion.
Also, what I see is that when you use Agile in anything, just like that, family reunions, event planning your wedding, right? Planning your graduation, anything. But then Agile kind of becomes a game and makes everything fun. Like in my experience, when I said about curriculum development, really the team was very much driven by the metrics and burning down points, right? And then that healthy competition about more points that are being burned down here or there. So it generates a very healthy game and makes everything fun. So
I must confess, when I we were planning a family reunion a couple of years ago, and I basically put everyone on a Kanban board, and we were generating a backlog. And all of a sudden, one of my cousins looked at me. She's like, "Is this what you do?" And I'm like, she's like, "Oh, it does work." I'm like, "Best family reunion plan ever."
Awesome.
Yeah, if anyone was on the edge or on the fence, including myself, about, including Agile in their everyday routine, I definitely think they will think otherwise now with you too.
I have one client. We just put him, painter's tape and sticky notes, and making his work transparent so he could see everything that he was trying to put into a system. It made a world of difference for him, because then he could see, he's like, oh, yeah, I've got too much stuff right here. This is why it's clogging. I'm like, okay, what do we need to pull back? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just making that visible for him.
Yeah, the visual concept of it is what is so fascinating. And I think it helps a lot of people, whether they say, oh, I can just do it in my head, But everyone is a visual learner in some sort of way.
And that's a great way to think about it. So earlier we had the question that's like, how do I, I'm stuck at home and I need to be more productive. Okay. When you can show that to someone else who isn't in your house and be like, okay, here's what's going on. It gives them that visibility, and you can say, hey, do you see why this is clogging here? I've got too much work in progress right here. Yeah. What do I need to pull back? Okay. And they're like, oh, you really can't push 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag right there. Okay. Yeah. Some of that's got to come back. Probably should have asked about cursing before I got on here. So I'll, but you see, yeah, I mean, I know that you have a virtual background right there, Lauren, but honestly, painter's tape, index cards, sticky notes, that's all you need. That's all you need. There are great, digital free tools that you can use as well, if that's what you want. But sometimes just seeing everything that needs to go into play, that's all you need.
Oh, yeah. I have to agree. Deborah and I talk about this all the time. We use all these forms of, calendar planning and whatnot to visual, put it on make it virtual and whatnot. But no, nothing beats paper for me. And I know that probably younger generations will disagree because they are all about tech now. But nothing beats the paper and pen.
No, that's a cathartic act to be able to write something down. Okay. Yep. And to get it out of your head. And there's that act of getting it out of your head. Mm-hmm. Okay. No.
It's fun when, like you say, younger generations will rather use technology, but sometimes when you use some of this technology, you get so much stuck on the use of the technology, and maybe a glitch, this didn't work, or I deleted the wrong card, or there's always some little tweaks in technology that you can get easily lost in the technology itself and lose focus on the real exercise. But when you are just using Post-its, there's no bad in deleting or ripping this Post-it and getting another one, right? It's much more, it flows better, and you actually focus on the process itself, and that spurs innovation and creativity.
And it gives you such a place to start from. I mean, start where we are and go from there. That's exactly what we're going for. Because if you're finding like, oh, the system is working, but I think it could work better. And that's where you're like, okay, I need to have dots to indicate, is this personal? Is this work? Or should this belong to one person or another? Or it's like, okay, this is a really big ticket. How do I break this down? And the thing is, it gives you a place to start experimenting with and have that. I mean, let's start where we are and go from there. That's, what I often tell teams, what organizations, there's nothing wrong with the way you've been doing things. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you want to find a better way. Let's try. Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to try.
No, it doesn't.
So I have a quick question, you guys. It's kind of off script, but since we've all taught at universities or worked for a university, I really, one of my other passions is to bring more project management, agile into the curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not seeing a lot of it yet. I know ASU is bringing it in. So what do you guys see the future for agile in universities? I mean, do we just, do you see it just in IT or engineering, or, does it need to be like everywhere? What do you guys, because I have my own thoughts, but I'm wondering you guys, since you both have experience in university as well.
Karina, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. My thinking is, number one, I would say beyond university, it's education. The topic is education. Every like pre-K through forever, lifelong learning, right? It doesn't end when you finish a college degree. It's education is a lifelong learning. It's a lifelong opportunity, right, to continue to learn. So, and the whole education approach has changed or is continuously changing right now with COVID. So the question becomes more on how educational institutions can become more fluid to their approaches to learning, and how do they really continue to embrace the change in everything that they do and being able to adapt to, right now it's hybrid learning or fully online learning, or different needs that are going to, I believe hybrid is here to stay, like in the future, we're going to continue to have some students choosing to do online learning at the same time that the teacher is teaching some others that are in person. And so how are education institutions going to continue to adapt to that? And that is the big question. So Agile becomes only a support, a strategy for the main strategy that education institutions are going to choose to adapt to that change. So Agile is the how of the what they will do to adapt to the different changes that COVID and whatever comes next are pushing us to do differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to add to that, I think we're going to see different Agile practices, filtered down into more, what if it's at the grade school level where teachers are saying, hey, here's the day that we have planned. And students begin to see, work move through a system just of the day. And they, recognize it as a way, a support, a framework, just like Karina said, to help them understand where they are and how that work is going to track going through. And it's just kind of a way that they've been growing up, because eventually, more and more teachers are going to be reaching out going, hey, I need help with this. And someone's going to know a coach or a scrum master and be like, well, let's experiment more with this. And so students are going to have that, filtered coming in, and it's going to continue through university, because at this point, yes, they're teaching, Agile, for lack of a better term, at the university level over the engineering departments, just because this is how you guys are going to see this as you, exit university and move into professional workforce. I see the day coming sooner rather than later where, this is just the way things are done, not, something new to learn. This is just kind of always there. Mm-hmm. So I think Karina's words of support and framework, yeah, spot on.
Yeah, it's like back in the time, right? We were teaching people how to write an email or how to use Gmail or the first Yahoo or whatever email applications were there, right? And there may have been some whole classes for how to use an email application. And now it's part of our day-to-day, right? It's everybody knows how to do it. We don't need to take a class for it. So yeah, same way, like teaching Agile is not something that is going to be in the future, but it's just going to be taken as a given and used as an approach to change, which is constant.
And even for, starting off, like even really young, like you do the K through 12, Karina, preparatory schools, like I think that's great starting off young, because I definitely wish I had that, at a younger age, and I got to know
too late, Lauren. We can get.
I know. I know it's never too late, but definitely kids that are, going through K through 12 definitely are much, much lucky, very lucky to start it off young. But yeah, you guys are, I'm just literally like, I want this conversation to last forever and ever, because you guys are just like the best.
I'll let you call my afternoon clients then and tell them why I'm going to be late.
Yeah. I mean, for me, so, I struggled with this for a long time because I've been teaching project management for a long time at universities. And so I struggle with it because, we teach finance, we teach operations, we teach marketing, but we don't teach project management. And so when people go out in the workforce and they get thrown a project, they don't know how to do it, right? Or, they're told to be a scrum master, or, you have this release train that you've got to manage, and they have no idea what that is or how to do it. And it just seems like if we're going to teach those other parts of how we work, then why can't we teach project management you know what I mean? So it's, for me, it's more of like preparing people for the workforce at universities. And I don't think we're there yet with project management. So, we are with like the certificate, like with IC Agile does a great job, and other, PMI does a great job with project management. So, we're there, but not a lot of people go there right away, right? They go there when they need to. So it seems like it should be more at the high school or college level where they're learning these things, just like they're learning the other topics. Mm-hmm. Right. So that was just, just my thought about it.
I kind of want to go off on a tangent on mentorship, but I don't know if we have time.
1 minute. Okay. Let's do it. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a 1 minute for my tangent on mentorship.
1
okay.
minute.
I thought I was waiting a minute. Okay. But I think what you're describing there is we do need that mentorship aspect. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. People have heard me speak at conferences and the like will hear me say this sentence. Mentorship is the act of planting trees under which you will not enjoy the shade. Mm-hmm. Okay. How do we, as practitioners or people that experienced, how do we help bring that forth in, the next generations, the people who will come after us? What relationships do we need to build with them to really help ensure that they have the skills to do some of this difficult work? I wish that I saw more active mentorship in place, not only just throughout, the professional workforce, but humanity as a whole. Because it's that teaching aspect, yes, but, there's a difference between coaching and mentoring, and we're not as clear on it as we should be. So if anybody would like to hear me go off on a full-blown tangent about that mentorship, let me know. And,
we'll bring you back.
Erin clearly has a thing about this.
We'll do a show on mentoring.
No, I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah. I would. I'll bring back you and a couple more, and we'll talk about mentoring because I think it's important. I agree.
I do too.
Yeah. So that's a great stopping place. I really love that. It's time to start winding down. I want to thank you both for joining us today. Like Lauren said, this was amazing, and hopefully, people are going to listen and learn a great deal from you. And we want to know, how to get in touch with you, obviously, because I know that people who are going to be listening in are going to want to get in touch with both of you. So how can we reach you, Erin?
Well, the easiest way is probably just to find me on LinkedIn. It's Erin Randall. I would give you my coaching practice name, but everybody stumbles over it the first time. Ad meliora is Latin for to better things. And so that's where that name originated, but it always is a little bit fun to say the first time. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or just email me off my website. I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah, I already stumbled over it once, so I feel that I don't want
to. You're not alone. You're not alone. I always feel like I should come with a disclaimer. I'm a disclaimer. Yeah.
And Karina, you as well.
Yeah, for me, LinkedIn as well. Karina Jones, or email. I can take emails. Karina.jones@asu.edu.
Perfect.
That's great. Perfect. So just a reminder to our listeners that although this show is live, we do record them and release them as a podcast. So you can subscribe to the Lurnist show, Lurnist, show on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, whatever the platform you prefer. You can find the links to the show on our website, thelurnist.com. That's LURNIST.com. And we will also have the show notes on the site in a couple days, and that'll show how you can get in touch with both Karina and Erin as well.
Yes, and of course, thank you to our sponsor, Learn Agile. Visit learnagile.com to learn more about what we can do for your career in Agile.
So that's it for now. Thanks, Erin and Karina.
Yes, thank you.
It's been wonderful.